Hello and welcome. Today we're going to have a look at Fallout 4 in VR. It's only available for the HTC Vive, which is a great disappointment, but luckily I have an HTC Vive, didn't go with the Oculus. Now I'm playing this with a GTX 1070 and an AMD FX 8320 at 3.9 GHz, so not as good as it could be, but it's a pretty solid system. Now I'm gonna go straight off the bat here and say I did not like Fallout 4. Fallout 4 was not. It didn't do anything for me. It was passable at best. So that's my bias going into looking at Fallout 4 VR. Now when you first load it up, of course, you get the main menu, which is lazy and boring. Which, you know, sets a great tone for the rest of this game. It's just a black room with the Fallout 4 standard main menu in front of you. It's the main menu. It's the first thing people see when they launch your game. Do something creative. Now, beyond that, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's Fallout 4 in VR. Nothing too special. So when you start off a new game, you start off, you know, same way it usually does with your character in the mirror. However, the character customization, and I use customization very loosely here, there is none. It's just a bunch of presets for both the male and female characters. Now, obviously this doesn't matter because you're not ever going to see your face. There's no third person option in this game. You know, it's kind of nice to have the option. So as soon as you get into the game, you'll notice that it's prone to constant crashes. You can't have anything open in the background. You can't even have Notepad open in the background. Otherwise, this thing will freaking tank in the frames. And it'll crash every 10 to 15 minutes, even without anything open. This should not happen in a full release AAA title. And on top of that, loading times. If you launch the game while your computer's having a thought, oh, put it on a pot of coffee, boy, because you're in for a 10-minute load time. Yeah, I counted 10 minutes. Getting into it, the controls, they're pretty standard. Directional pads to walk, left trigger to jump, right trigger to shoot. I mean, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Walking's available in teleport and standard locomotion, as all VR games should be. But, strangely enough, the swimming controls are strangely intuitive. So you jump in the water, swimming on the surface of the water, same as walking, but diving below the surface, you use the Vive controllers to do a breaststroke motion swimming underwater. This is very out of place considering how intuitive this is compared to the bog standard controls that accompany the rest of the game. It's very, very weird. It does bring something new to the table, however, but the beyond that, the motion controls, nothing to be excited about, exactly as you'd expect. In-game, the control stick models are Vive controllers, just with a paler coat of paint. Now, while it isn't essential for all games to have custom controller models, I did see them turn into hands for a little bit while I was in the vault for a brief moment, but it hasn't happened since. They're just straight back to Vive controllers. In the settings menu, there's a separate section for the VR exclusive settings where the different options can be configured. Among these are the Pipboy settings. Now, there's three main ones. There's the wrist, the floating, and the projected. Now, the wrist is the most immersive, but it's also the most intrusive, the most buggy, and the most annoying. It appears on your wrist, and you hold a Vive controller in front of you as if you were looking at the Pipboy in real life. And it increases in size to fill your field of view. Now, while obviously this is immersive, it's very, very touchy. So if you rotate your arm just a little bit, that thing's going to pop out right in your face. If you're trying to open a door or point at something, it's just going to get in your way. Now, the second one is floating. This is the one I like the most. It's the most immersive besides the wrist one, and it mimics the Fallout 4 game the best, wherein you press the Pip-Boy button and it just appears in front of your face as a floating Pip-Boy, much as it does in the standard game. And you navigate the menus again by using the Vive controller. Last one is projected. It's pretty much the same as floating, just without the Pip-Boy around it. It's just a menu that hovers in front of you, a lot like how it appears when you're wearing power armor in the standard version of Fallout 4. And speaking of the user interface, outside of the Pip-Boy, it's nice. It's nice looking UI. It's utilitarian. It doesn't get in your way. It just does its job and keeps quiet about it. Now, you can also find in the VR settings the comfort vignette. Now, this is actually one of the best features about Fallout 4, because for new players and new Vive players who want to use standard locomotion, it can induce terrible motion sickness. I know I had it when I first started out, but this vignette eliminates that. It basically gives you tunnel vision and stops you seeing the environment moving around in your peripheral vision, which is what causes the disorientation, or what I believe causes the disorientation when wearing a Vive. And it only triggers when you move, which is great for new players and players who are easily prone to motion sickness. That's a great addition. The looting system, however, pretty much the same. It's point and click, just use the Vive controls to select what you want. I mean, it was fresh and new when Fallout 4 came out. Really hasn't changed, nothing too much into it. Now, onto the combat. Melee combat is flawed, but is so much fun. You can actually swing around a baseball bat, getting to point it at whatever you want. You can easily cripple limbs to stop enemies getting away. It's so much fun. It's actually more fun than the gun combat, which makes a melee playthrough viable, I guess. And, you know, dismembering corpses is never not fun. One-handed guns are exactly what you'd expect, point and shoot. Two-handed weapons, however, suck. They suck beyond anything. In hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, which is your quintessential shooter for any VR, you use the second Vive controller to basically grip the end of the gun, and that steadies your aim. None of that in Fallout 4. None of that. It's just point and shoot with a two-handed weapon using one hand. It looks ridiculous. The reloading is automatic when you empty your clip, but you can manually reload it if you like by pressing the grip button on the Vive controller, except for the laser musket. In that, you just have to spam the grip button and it winds it up for you. Now, the minigun it's laughable, alright? You hold the minigun with one hand and you can just wave around. You can point it at anything. You can two-hand miniguns if the game would allow, because you got massive superhuman VR strength for some reason. Now, I don't have the footage of this, but magnified sights, so sights that actually zoom in, don't work. Now, this is because VR games actually have to render a second screen, which is projected in the sight, which massively increases the zoom and decreases the field of vision. And if Fallout 4 ran one of those, it wouldn't even launch. It would just cripple and die. So I'm glad that's not in there, because that would make the game actually unplayable. VATS, however, I love what they did with VATS. It's now bullet time, which is good. So you engage VATS and you point like this. You point at a certain body part, and instead of queuing up shots, you just shoot, and it directs the bullets at what body part you're aiming at, which is a perfect way to do VATS in VR. They really hit the nail on the head with that one. Now on to Power Armor. Power Armor is so much fun. They did it so very well. The inside of the UI, you step into that Power Armor, it looks so good. The transparent heads-up display that you get in the standard version is now wrapped around the inside of the visor. It just looks amazing. The Power Armor moves nicely, it feels pretty good, but mostly the UI though. I'm caught up on the UI, it just looks so nice. Yeah, it works, it just works. Now, on the arse end of the gameplay is the world scale. Now, everything looks massive, and it's not the height of the player or how tall you are, everything is physically bigger than it should be, and it's very off-putting. So, Fallout 4 VR? Flawed. Definitely flawed, but still fun. It's clearly a rushed port to cash in on the current VR trend, and there are almost no changes to the core gameplay whatsoever. If you just want to shoot someone or something and battle super mutants and synths in VR, you're in for a good time. However, your wallet isn't. Fallout 4 VR is $60 US. It would have worked out much better as a $20 to $30 paid DLC, rather than a full purchase as a separate title, especially for people who already own Fallout 4. Basically, don't buy it. Wait for it to go on sale, or wait for your mate to buy it and play it at his. But, that's just my opinion. Take it with a grain of salt, try it yourself, and thanks for watching. See you next time.